G'day mate, my name's Margie and I'm an Australian currently living in America. Today's video is an episode 14 breakdown of the Bluey season 3 episode Explorers. So I've been trying to do a breakdown for every single episode for season 3 so far. I also do America versus Australia content. So if either of those two things interest you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below. I really super duper appreciate it. Now I realize I've got a little bit of a delay happening. I'm going to be uploading episode 14 and 15 tomorrow, as well as episode 16 and 17 the next day. It's been a bit of a hectic time. I am a children's book author, so we've been doing a lot of stuff with marketing for our book, My Santa, Your Santa, as well as library visits and author readings. So it's been a bit of a hectic weekend. Unsurprisingly, it's December, it's Christmas. But I'm going to try and keep on track with this as much as I possibly can, and if not, you get 2 episodes of this, of my breakdowns with all the Easter eggs, all the Aussie references, for a couple of days in a row. So that's no worries at all. Just make sure you always come check back. I'll always have links down in the description below for the playlist, for the breakdowns, as well as other episodes that I've been doing. But also, if you get the chance, don't forget to check out my book, My Santa, Your Santa. It's available on Amazon worldwide, in paperback and hardcover, and the links for that will also be in the comments and the description box down below. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's get started, starting with the synopsis. Explorers! While waiting to be picked up from school, Jack plays at being a sailor, trying to find his way back home to Australia. Meanwhile, Jack's dad has got lost en route to collect him. This episode, I'm sure for many people, are going to be so happy about it because it centers on Jack again. We know that Jack has ADHD. It was something that they addressed in the previous season and did a whole episode based around him and Rusty with Army. He's a fantastic character, and we get to learn even more about him and his family in this episode as well as many Australian references. Like, this is like an ad for Australia on Bluey, and I'm going to get into a little bit more of why I think it's that way as we go through it. Starting off, we get to see Bluey School, a nice beautiful landscape in the background. The kids are off playing in one corner. Winton's dad, of course, doing his cameo. I don't know where he's going though, because we find out this is the end of the school day. So maybe he just forgot something in the car. So our main characters as we start off are Rusty, Jack, Coco, and Bluey. And they're talking about sort of sailing to Antarctica and back to Australia. And this is a major Aussie reference. So we can tell who they're supposed to be based off the hat that Rusty is wearing. This is meant to emulate Douglas Mawson, who was an Australian geologist, an Antarctic explorer, and an academic, alongside 3 other people, Jack, Bluey, Coco. He was one of the key expedition leaders during the heroic age of the Antarctic exploration. Kind of a nice nod that they have like 4 people doing this Antarctic exploration, but they do focus on the idea of them sort of becoming Douglas Mawson and how important he was as well for traveling to and from Australia to the Antarctic. So that's a really cool like Aussie history reference. We then get to see Rusty's mum, so he has to leave. The voice actor as well for Rusty's mum is Jane Hall. She's an Australian actress, comedian, writer, and presenter as well. We then finally get to see Winton's dad coming back to pick up Winton, and basically Rusty just telling them all to like sail that way for 6 weeks to get to Australia. We then get to see Jack's dad. So the person who is voicing Jack's dad is Hamish Blake. So to anyone who's in Australia, Hamish Blake is a very famous and well-known name. I first knew of him as a comedian and a radio talk show host, I guess. But he's gone on also to be like an actor, and he does so many different like TV spots and things like that. So he's quite famous in Australia. Now, he's already actually appeared on Bluey before. So he was also the voice of the Labrador in Hammerbarn. He did that as a cameo alongside his wife, Zoe, who was also the cameo voice actor for the checkout chick in Hammerbarn, as well as she is the voice for Jack's mum. So it's quite sweet that this family, like the mum and dad for Jack, are also married in real life. So Hamish and Zoe both are Jack's parents in the show. This is where the idea of it being a tourism ad for Australia also comes in. So Hamish and Zoe are the current Australian tourism ambassadors. And for this last year, sort of during the pandemic and everyone being shut down, Australia's done a lot to sort of promote the idea of traveling within Australia. And so the 2 of them have been doing multiple ads on YouTube and on TV about promoting different places in Australia and where you should be going to travel to. And the tourism is called Holiday Here this year. So it's really funny that this is also in this episode as well, very much that kind of ad for tourism in Australia as well. We then also get to find out the name of Jack's sister. Her name is Lulu, so that's a nice little thing to add into the Bluey canon. And then unfortunately, Jack's dad runs out of battery and he no longer has sat-nav. In Australia, we say sat-nav. I have noticed overseas more people will say Google Maps or GPS. It's the same thing, satellite navigation versus GPS. So yeah, in Australia, we just more commonly would say sat-nav. We then go back over to see the kids and they kind of make a joke about like watching out for coral reefs. Now, whilst Australia has a lot of amazing coral reefs, the bottom part between the base of Australia and Antarctica have no coral reefs whatsoever. So it's quite funny that they mentioned this when there would have been literally no chance of them ever bumping into one. But it is a nice Aussie reference to like the Great Barrier Reef. We then see Coco having to leave. We get to see Coco's mum rock up. If you look right into the background there as well in the car, you see all of Coco's siblings that we learned about from Baby Race, which is really cool. You then also see Snickers in the background, Sausage Dog rolling down the hill, which we've seen him do in other episodes as well. So it's kind of cute to see all these other extra characters that we've known from previous episodes. We then get a parallel between Jack and his dad saying, oh, this isn't good. So the whole idea of this episode is basically paralleling them both getting lost on their journeys and trying to find each other. The next Australian reference we get is a very specific Brisbane reference. So Brisbane is quite famous for strawberries and strawberry picking as well. So we get to see Jack's dad pulling up to one of the strawberry farms that's just around Brisbane to try and get some help with his directions. Now, for example, in the US, a lot of people know that like the fruits and vegetables here are usually picked by Mexican workers. In Australia, however, majority of our fruit and vegetables are picked by backpackers. There's actually a tourist and working holiday visa. So if anyone wants to come to Australia for a year, they can, and they can work as well as travel. If they want to stay for 2 years though, they have to do a minimum of 3 months in total work on a farm in Australia, picking fruit or vegetables. And that's how a lot of our produce gets picked. So this is a really awesome reference to the backpackers in Australia and like the fruit picking industry. The voice actors for these as well is really cool. So for our female dog there, we have Nanny Toman or Tommen. She is one of the animators at Ludo Studio. And then for the male dog, his voice actor is Bryce Peneter. And I cannot find who that is. It doesn't seem to be anyone famous, like an actor or something like that. So I would believe that maybe it's someone who works at Ludo Studios. But if you have any idea, let me know in those comments down below. So we then get like a funny exchange between the two of them, Jack's dad and with the backpackers. And he sort of mentions that he's not from around here. And we find out as well in this episode specifically where Jack's family is from. So we can tell this based off their number plate. Their number plate is for Victoria, which is one of the states down south. Their capital city is Melbourne, whereas we are up in Queensland, also known as the Sunshine State. But you can sort of see from these images here, like that's how we can tell it's based off the number plate. Also, I should point out that the RUS is Russ for Russell or Jack Russell, which is the breed of dog that they are. And 531 is the hex color code for brown, which of course is the predominant color with white for the Jack Russells. I'm assuming that that's what this means based on the fact that Bluey's number plate of her car spells out Blue Healer. So same thing, the hex color code is blue and then the HLR is for healer. When we go back to the kids, we see a nice reference to the episode Octopus, where Bandit is acting like the octopus and is stealing Bluey away. So that's a really nice reference to a previous episode. The next one we get is Jack's dad pulling into a servo, or a service station, petrol station, gas station, as you would say in other countries. This is quite cool. It's like a bait and tackle shop as well as a petrol station or a servo. On the side there, the little phone booth is the iconic Telstra phone booth. They also went with like the more old school one, which has the orange lid there with like a solar panel, which is really cool. The ones these days tend to have the pink lids because they have free Wi-Fi inside of them. But this is a really cool like Australianism. We also find out that the person running this bait and tackle servo is none other than Maynard. So this is really cool. Obviously we know Maynard has like a little hut out on Granddad's, like Chili's Granddad's farm. I'm guessing he also works or lives up in this area during the week. He probably goes to Granddad's on the weekend. A lot of people usually do that for going fishing and things like that. It's quite cool. We get to see him again. The voice actor for him as well is Sean Chulborough. He is a very famous Australian comedian, and massive shout out to him as well because he is from my hometown, Townsville. So Maynard and his voice actor have a very special place in my heart. It's also quite cool. We can see that Maynard is like chiseling out a dog made of wood. And then as we also zoom in further into his store, we can see our long dog for the episode. So right there up in the back, there's a little long dog eating the strawberry for the strawberry farm, as well as wearing the little beanie for Douglas Mason as well. So that's really cool shout outs. I love when they do long dogs like this where they match the episode. Now, during Maynard and Jack's dad's exchange, we find out where Bluey's school finally is. It is in the Glass House Mountains. It's called Glass House Primary School. This is really interesting because where Bluey lives down around the Paddington area versus where Glass House Mountains are is a 1 hour drive. So logistically speaking, I don't know what time they're waking up in the morning to get Bluey all the way up to her primary school and then also take Bingo all the way to her daycare, wherever that is. I don't know, maybe it follows the same logic as Bluey's house and like time and space don't really matter, but it is really interesting to note that that's how far away they are. Now, a nice little Aussie slang reference here is when Maynard calls Jack's dad a city fella. City fella is just the Aussie way of saying city slicker, basically. Jack's dad decides that he's running out of time, so he is gonna take that shortcut. And then this is, I feel like, a montage of like an SUV ad, and all it's missing is like the gruff voices. So it starts off with him bush bashing basically down through a dirt road, going all the way through that creek. And then this is where it really turns into like a tourism ad, I feel. They go out into like this great big open area. We see cockatoos, which are a very typical Australian bird, especially in Queensland. All the strawberries are heading around everywhere. And then we get to go into another field where we see all the kangaroos. So earlier in the episode, Lulu sort of mentioned like she saw the sign for kangaroos, but never really saw any. And now we actually get to see them. And I won't lie, when I watched this scene, I was having so much anxiety because kangaroos don't run like this. They don't like just bound in these beautiful straight lines next to your car. They run in front of your car. Like the chances of hitting one of these kangaroos would have been so high for Jack's dad. I knew they weren't going to do it in the show, but even still, I was just like, don't hit a kangaroo, don't hit a roo, don't hit a roo, don't hit a roo. But it is really nice because then all of a sudden like the cockatoos are flying over and Jack sees them and he sort of mentions them. So that's how we know they're getting closer together. We get a beautiful picture of the Glass House Mountains and Bluey's primary school. The best part, I think, at the end is when Jack's dad has his little bit of dialogue.
Is this Australia?
Yeah, mate. This is Australia.
And again, just a massive reference to Hamish Blake, the voice actor, and all of his tourism ads he's been doing over the last year and a bit. And just in general, a nice ad for anyone who wants to come to Australia. This is a really beautiful way of showing it. Overall, I really enjoyed this episode. It felt really, really Aussie, and it reminded me a lot of those sort of tourism ads. But I did really like that, again, we got to focus on Jack, but just a totally different aspect. We got to see more about him and his family and his dad. And we can see that he's settling into school really well, which is awesome. So for me, definitely a 10 out of 10 episode. I absolutely loved it. I will be breaking down the next episode. So this one will be out in the morning, and then the follow-up episode, Phones, where we finally get to see Granddad, will be out this afternoon. So make sure to come back to the channel, check that out. And if you enjoyed this episode or this breakdown as much as I did, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and hit that subscribe button down below. Leave me a comment. Did you find any other Aussie references, Brisbane references, or any other Easter eggs that I missed? I've got loads of other videos in the description box down below that you can have a look at, and I will see you later on. Mwah! Bye!